You know, when we think of AI, we tend to picture something clean, digital, almost weightless, right? But behind that sleek interface is a massive, and I mean massive, hidden physical reality. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back that screen and reveal the enormous industrial machine that's actually powering our AI and the growing conflicts over the resources it's gobbling up.
And this slide, right here, it just nails the whole problem. For us, AI is an app. It's a chatbot window, a search bar on our phone. It feels like pure software. But from the AI's perspective, or rather from the perspective of the infrastructure that runs it, we're just a collection of physical things. We're an energy grid to tap into, a water table to draw from, and a plot of land to build on. The whole story of AI's growth is really the story of its ever-increasing demand for these physical resources.
So let's talk about that physical footprint, because it turns out the cloud has a very, very heavy body. It's not some abstract idea floating around in cyberspace. No, it's a rapidly expanding network of real-world, heavy-duty industrial infrastructure.
Forget the idea of some quiet warehouse full of computers. A hyperscale data center is a massive industrial complex. It needs a staggering amount of electricity and water, its own electrical substations, a fleet of diesel generators for backup, and it only lands in our communities after these complex political deals involving huge tax breaks and plenty of environmental fights. To put that power demand into perspective, here's the number for 2024. Data centers around the world are set to consume about 415 terawatt-hours of electricity. I mean, that's already a mind-boggling figure on its own. But just look at the projection for 2030. The International Energy Agency expects that number to more than double to 945 terawatt-hours. And here's the kicker. That's just their base case scenario. The reality could actually be much, much higher.
This chart just makes it crystal clear. Data centers are on track to go from eating up 1.5% of all global electricity to nearly 3% in just 6 years. And what's the main driver behind this incredible surge? You guessed it, artificial intelligence.
Now, this fight over land, water, and power isn't just some technical problem we can engineer our way out of. The source material we're looking at frames it as a very specific power dynamic, one it calls AI imperialism. So let's break down what that actually means.
Okay, so here's the core definition. AI imperialism is a system where a handful of giant tech companies get special, privileged access to our shared public resources. They get the land, the power, the water, and of course, the tax breaks. But the burdens, things like pollution, industrial noise, higher utility bills for everyone else, all of that gets left for the local communities to deal with, while the real profits flow out to faraway investors and global users.
And you can see it builds into this really clear four-step pattern. First, you lock down access to the physical stuff you need, land and power. Second, you get the government on your side with sweet tax deals and easy regulations. Third, you push all the negative consequences onto the people who actually live there. And finally, you make sure the big financial benefits are pulled out and sent somewhere else entirely. Now, a lot of this happens pretty quietly, behind the scenes. But when an energy crisis hits, suddenly everyone can see it. When resources get scarce, that political question of who gets what becomes a really sharp, very public conflict. The question isn't, how do we grow anymore? It becomes, who gets priority?
And that conflict, it's not a future hypothetical, it is already playing out. All across the country, local communities are finding themselves going toe-to-toe with these massive new projects.
Let's just look at one of the starkest examples out there, a town called Festus, Missouri. A $6 billion data center was proposed, and the community response was so huge that they had to move the public hearing to a high school gym just to fit everybody in the room. And what were people so worried about? Well, it wasn't abstract ideas. It was real, physical, personal stuff. They talked about the constant industrial noise humming in their bedrooms at night, the smell of diesel fumes from the backup generators, the endless truck traffic, the fear that their own utility bills would go up. They were worried about a massive industrial site being built literally right next to their homes.
So for 2 solid hours of public comment, the opposition was completely unanimous. Every single person spoke against it. And yet, when it was time for the vote, the city council approved the project anyway, 6-2. This kind of disconnect is a theme you see over and over in these fights.
So what's happening here isn't just a simple disagreement. It's a fundamental clash between two totally different ways of seeing what a data center even is. To the residents, it's an industrial burden with real consequences. To to the officials, it's a growth opportunity that can be managed with contracts and engineering. They're basically talking about two different things.
So you might be wondering, why don't we hear more about these huge local battles over infrastructure? Well, the source we're looking at argues there's a pretty clever ideological reason for this. It's a kind of misdirection called the interface as decoy.
This is such a sharp insight. All of our public attention, all of the debate is drawn to the interface, the chatbot, its personality, its voice. We're encouraged to focus on the face of the model, while the real machine, the physical infrastructure, just keeps expanding relentlessly in the background.
I mean, think about it. The public debate is obsessed with these surface-level questions. Is the AI too agreeable? What's its tone like? Is it empathetic enough? But the real power is being exercised in a completely different area. In backroom negotiations for substations, for cooling systems, for land deals, for water rights.
And the AI companies themselves are absolute masters at reinforcing this decoy. Just look at the examples. OpenAI's model spec is all about how the model should behave. When they had that issue with GPT-4o being too fawning, their whole public explanation was about tweaking its tone. Anthropic famously published Claude's Constitution to talk about its values. See, these are all problems they can claim to solve with a quick policy update, while the much harder, much more material questions go completely unaddressed.
But these local fights in places like Missouri, they aren't happening in a vacuum. They are absolutely part of a growing international movement of resistance.
You can see this happening all over the globe. In Ireland, data centers are already sucking down over a fifth of the entire country's electricity. In a drought-prone part of Mexico, residents are connecting a new data center boom directly to their own strict water rationing. From the UK to Spain, campaigners are treating these data centers as a direct threat to their local water and energy security.
And I honestly don't think you will find a more powerful, more perfect summary of this whole conflict than this campaign slogan from Aragon, Spain. Tu nube seca mi rio. Your cloud is drying my river. It just so perfectly connects that weightless digital idea of the cloud directly to the physical reality of a drying riverbed. It's poetic and it's devastatingly accurate.
So, what connects a fight in Festus, Missouri with a protest in Aragon, Spain? It's the global energy crisis. That's the thread that ties all these separate local fights into one single story. A household being told to conserve power and a town getting a new, massive industrial power load are not separate issues. They are two sides of the exact same coin.
Which leaves us with this final and, I think, crucial question. In a world with finite resources, who gets to decide what our priorities are? Who gets to decide how we divvy up our energy, our water, and our land when things get tight? And maybe even more importantly, who gets the power to call that choice progress?